In this exercise, we're going to draw single point perspective. And before we get started though, let's make some adjustments so we can see what we're doing easily. I'm going to make my window large enough so that I can see these tools. But I want you to make your drawing space to be 600. If you'll notice on the left side the ruler where that red line is on 6, and on the right at the top 8. So 600 by 800. So make your drawing space only that large. And we'll tend to do that almost all the time. Okay? And I'll put this back in the frame so you can see it. Okay, good. Now we're ready to begin. This is our goal, single point perspective. I'm going to start out by getting a new screen. File, new, don't save. And let's begin. I'll start by pasting my my logo for our project today, single point perspective. In defining perspective, we first need to define a horizon line. And we're going to do this by using a line drawing tool, and we'll use light gray and the smallest line possible. And I'll hold the shift key. Holding the shift key to draw this line allows me to draw a horizontal line, perfectly horizontal. Notice if my mouse goes up and down, the line is still perfectly horizontal. If I move my mouse down to what would be a 45-degree angle, it will shift to that, or even a vertical line. So that the shifted line will make this line a perfect, in this case, horizontal line. And to make this line work, I'll go almost to the edge, I'll let go of the mouse, then I'll let go of the shift key, and I can still adjust this with my arrow key if it's necessary. But once I click someplace else or another tool, I've pasted it down to the canvas. To define our vanishing point, a vanishing point can be defined as wherever the viewer happens to be looking. So if I'm looking, and in this case we want to put our vanishing point straight in there, or right in the center, I'm just going to put a vertical line there. It is as if, as we're looking at the objects we're seeing, this is where we're looking, so everything is going to that direction. And indeed, that's where things are going to be going. We're going to be looking at drawing some cubes, as you saw. And to do that, we're going to start out by first defining some vanishing point lines. I'll continue with the gray. I'm going to click right on this intersection, right on this point, and I'll draw a line off here to the left. There's one. Make it go quite long. And I'll draw a second line. I think this will be the width of whatever objects I'm drawing. And I'll draw a third line from the vanishing point. This will be the depth of whatever I'm drawing, or the height. Okay, that looks okay. So let's begin. To set up for drawing our objects, we're going to switch our lines back to a thicker, or the next thicker style. I think it's 3 pixels. And we'll make them black, so that way we can tell them apart. And I'll start by getting right on this line. I'll hold the shift key and draw my first horizontal line to the other line. And I let go of my mouse, let go of my shift key, and I can still use the arrow key to place this, but we're not going to worry about that much. Much. We want to just draw or sketch this in. I want you to add a vertical line to this, same way. Hold the shift key down, I'll draw a vertical line from one line down to the other. Now I've defined this end, or this part of my drawing. The next line that I draw, I'll paste this, has to be parallel with the first line, or parallel with the line that's opposite, and the same exact length. I'm going to guess that that line is right about there. And I'll put the horizontal line, holding the shift key. So what happens if a person accidentally goes, well, farther than they're supposed to? Well, I use the other mouse button. Since my other color is white, if I use the other mouse button to draw a line, that line, as you can see as I move it, that line's a white line, and I can use that to block out my other line. If I made the line thicker, it would make it easier, but I don't want you to be switching back and forth, so I'm not going to either. Well, let's continue this object. This first object we're going to draw is going to be called a wireframe, and what that means is we're going to see all of the lines. So we'll draw another horizontal line across the top, from one line to the other. Let go of my mouse first, then the Shift key. I'll draw it down. I'll draw it horizontally across, lining it up underneath with my first line, and I'll draw down to connect that. Okay? Now I simply trace, without using the Shift key, the vanishing point lines. I'm clicking away from my line because I don't want to accidentally make the line think I'm adjusting it. So there I have a wireframe of my rectangle. Let's draw another one back here, except we're not going to make it a wireframe. In other words, we're going to not draw these three lines in that. And we'll make it look three-dimensional. Okay? I'm going to speed this up a little bit, but I will get you started. Let's start by defining that first line right here. And it is a little close on purpose. Let's see how this turns out. Nope, no line there. So I can draw my lines without a shift. Okay. Looks like I've cluttered my screen a little, and you may have too. So I'll show you how I solve that. I can use the select, the freeform, and just draw a selection around those objects that I want gone. Press delete, and they're gone. Should we draw one more? Let's do that. Back to line drawing tool. We'll use a black, same size. Draw one more in this line. This is good practice. Now in this case, I drew my other line first to define how far it goes up. Once that line is set, it does dictate the other two lines that go in that direction. In other words, they have to be the same direction and the same length, all three lines. So this line will probably be right there, and another vertical line. Well, I can almost imagine this: train cars on a train track or trucks on a highway headed for, oh, maybe the horizon. And on the horizon is a nice setting sun. But we're not done. We have another project to do, another way to look at our drawing with perspective. In the second part of our exercise, we're going to draw our vertical line first to define our box. We're going to draw a cube here, not a wireframe, but just a cube, three-dimensional box. But we're going to draw the box and have it define where our vanishing point lines are. So to start with, we'll choose the line drawing tool. I'll use the 3-pixel line. Make sure your color is black. And we're ready to begin. I think I'll draw one vertical line here that defines my cube. So there it is. Be about that big. Okay. Once that is set, I can now switch over to the final line that's light gray and draw my vanishing points. Again, this is a non-shifted line. Put it right at the top. It's important to be very accurate with this, because if you're off a little bit, then your box or your object will look unnatural. Okay, so I'm set. Now this is defined where the next vertical line is in the back will go. If I wanted to draw the horizontal line across the top, in other words, if this is going to be a true cube, I'll make it square. I'll hold the Shift key, and I'll make this about the same size. We could copy this length, rotate it, and paste it to make sure they're exactly the same size, but we're not worried about that kind of accuracy today for this exercise. I'll change my line size again and draw again from my vanishing point line. out here to catch the end of that. So now I have enough to finish this. I've defined everything except for the depth of my box. And I'll add that third line now. Change the size back and add my third line. And of course this is non-shifted, so it needs to follow the vanishing point line. And it needs to be about the same length in perspective as the first two. That looks about right. So these three lines that have defined my cube, I can make no other line custom that doesn't follow these lines. So I'll finish the drawing. I let go of the shift key too soon. I press delete. I'll draw it over. There we are. And there I have a three-dimensional cube with single point perspective.